Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Help Us Here podcast, brought to you by the Beyond Compulsion Academy. Today I'm joined by Mary Paulus, and we're going to be talking about Instagram, OnlyFans, and porn addiction, and how all of those things sort of come together and a bit of a mess right now. So, Mary, welcome back on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm getting over being sick, but I'm here and have a lingering cough, so I'm going to do my best not to cough into my microphone and join this podcast today. So here I am. Yes.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
joining me. I'm
Yeah.
hoping we get through it okay. Feel like we've both had quite a lot to say over the last couple of weeks. We've obviously not done a podcast together for a little while now. You've seen
Yeah.
some certain things on Instagram. I've seen some certain things on TV recently, which I want to talk about. So yeah, let's get into it. Do you want to start off by
Sure.
sharing what you saw on Instagram recently and your thoughts on that as well?
Yeah. Well, I don't do Instagram. I've always had an aversion to Instagram because I don't know why. I don't like it. I do have a Beyond Compulsion Instagram that's kind of old and I tried to set up at one point, but I just never liked the things that I kind of saw in my face. I guess the feed is different, but the other night I was at the art center and we have hired a new instructor and I wanted to see their art, right? So I thought, well, maybe they have an Instagram. So I went and I hit the search button to put their name into the search. And I don't know why I was on the search, but instantly my screen was covered with very large breasts and very scantily clad bikinis and just like women, the whole screen was covered with, it looked like from my day and age, like a Playboy magazine. I mean, I was full on and I was just like, holy shit, I had no idea, that that's what Instagram was all about. I mean, I kind of knew, but I didn't know that it was that extreme, and I just thought so many people and kids have Instagram accounts, and is that what they're seeing? And I mean, I know their parents probably can't stop them from going on there or whatever, but it was ludicrous. I mean, I was like shocked. I was like, what the hell is this? And then I went back to my feed so I could see like some fairly normal things, or whatever. But the minute I hit search, it was right back in my face again. And
Mm.
yeah, I was shocked. And I mean, I know in the past we've talked about, that the guys could use Instagram in a reasonable way or whatever, but I just feel like why would you want to even participate in that on any level, much less kids,
Mm.
and young boys especially, I mean, good God, you don't have a prayer to not get hooked into some kind of pornography. And that to me, I mean, I have never been on a porn site, an actual porn site, but that looked seemed pornographic to me. I was like, what
Mm.
the hell is going on here?
Yeah,
So yeah,
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 yeah.
shocked.
It was really interesting to hear that, when you first mentioned it to me, because I sort of had a belief that maybe my algorithm had maybe been set up in that way because of stuff I'd looked at historically. Maybe they've got some data on me somehow, because
Right.
obviously in the past I have searched out sexual content on Instagram and other social media sites. But then to hear it from you, it was quite refreshing because I know you haven't ever searched for that stuff. And yet the
No.
algorithm is still showing you this pornographic content right away on the explore page. And the problem is, now obviously what we talk about a lot are junky thoughts. So these rationalizations, excuses to engage in compulsivity. The rationalization, like the junky thought that I had for so many years was this isn't porn. Like that's what got in the way of me actually facing my own reality because
Yeah.
I didn't want to face that reality. I wanted to stay engaging. I wanted to look at that sexual content. And so I tricked myself, well, the addicted part of my mind tricked myself into believing like this is okay. It's okay because it's not porn. But I think it's quite refreshing to hear from somebody else their perspective that, wait, hang on, like this is actually bad. Like this is like porn, and this is like
Yeah.
how Playboy was once upon a time in the past. And I totally agree. The impact it had on my brain was very, very similar to watching porn when I was scrolling on that page, not knowing what I was going to see next. And you can kind of go down a rabbit hole, click into posts, go into
Yeah.
profiles, and then you can just look at increasingly novel sexual content, more and more and more and more. And it really is just like a dark hole which you can really deep dive into, and it's pretty bad.
Well, the other thing that, I don't want to judge people, because people are going to do what they're going to do, but these women on there, what the hell? You know what? Have some self-respect for God's sake. They got these like string bikinis, and then they got their ass in the picture, and it's like have some self-respect and think also of like what you're doing to like young boys putting that out there like that. I mean, maybe they're trying to make money. Did they get money for that? Or if they're only fans or fans only
Yeah,
or what
yeah,
you call that?
yeah,
It's disgusting to me. I mean, it's just I don't know. I feel like the women are as responsible as the guys looking at it. I mean, even more so to put that out there like that is it's just messed up.
mm, I
I'm
agree.
sorry. I don't mean to be judgmental, but I am judging it because I think it's really wrong on so
Yeah,
many levels,
definitely.
you know.
Yeah, I think is bad because, as you say, there's kids on there. There's people on there who want to use Instagram, but they're not going on Instagram to look at sexual content. Like you were just searching up this artist. You weren't
Yeah,
intending to see porn, but then it's like blasted in your face on your
right.
journey to just seeing somebody's content. Like you didn't choose to see it. And that's where helplessness can also come in my opinion, because the other junky thought we see a lot is, oh, I didn't mean to see any sexual content, which is totally consenting to helplessness. And that's the thought I had in the past is like, it's
Yeah.
okay for me to go on Instagram and scroll. It's not my fault if I see some sexual content. But how, yeah, do you
Yeah.
want to add in something there, Mark?
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, we've talked about like maybe educating parents because, you're not going to be able to keep your kids off of this stuff. So it's about educating them. They're going to see it, but what does that mean? And really talk to them about, you know, what being exposed to that, how that can end up for them, and really to understand it rather than to find a way to block them from it. It's like it's going to require a pretty in-depth education on addiction and how it can really mess up their lives by engaging with that stuff. And it's going to be a really tough hill to climb, educating parents
Mm,
to speak with their kids in a way that is going to get them to not feel helplessness, right? So you're going to see this stuff, and you're still in control of your actions, and you decide how you're going to proceed with this. But if you choose to engage with this is where it's going to lead you.
mm,
And that's where we could bring in some of the reality of that by sharing the remember letters of the guys that are in the program, where it's not going to bring you to a good and happy place. You have a choice, obviously, because parents can't keep their kids away from that. I
mm.
mean, I guess you could encourage them not to have an Instagram account. And I mean, I don't know how you could really accomplish that, blocking kids from Instagram. I don't know how you can do that. So
Yeah, and the thing is with that as well, it's probably going to create even greater feelings of deprivation.
yeah, why don't you want me to be on there? I want to go, right. They're going to want to even more. Where if you can say, this is the thing, you're going to be exposed to this. We can't stop you. I mean, kids got to be on their computers all the time with their studies.
Mm,
And it's like, we can't stop you from this, but here, this is the reality. Go
mm.
listen to Tom and Mary on their podcast and see where this is going to lead you. And
Yeah,
I mean, that's probably the best help we can give to parents and young boys that are going to be exposed to this stuff. It's just like, I mean, think about it. All those years ago, maybe, young guys would get their hands on their dad's Playboy, or whatever, or you could try to go to the store and buy it and they wouldn't sell it to you because you're too young and all that. But now it's literally in your face. You
yeah,
pick up your phone, you hit Instagram, you hit that search button, and bam, there it is.
yeah.
And
It's
then
hard. Yeah.
motivation for those people to put it in your face.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
absolutely insane, and it seems to be getting worse as well. Like, I
Yeah.
remember in the past using social media sites, and I don't think I ever saw quite so much sexual content. I really think it's changed as people
Yeah.
are competing more and more and more to grab people's attention to make money and so on. So yeah, a lot of these people, I think they do have links to their OnlyFans in their description. And on the
Yeah.
point of OnlyFans, so I went round to my girlfriend's house last night only for like about half an hour or so because she was just getting ready for a party. I was already ready. And I was just chilling in the front room, like watching some TV with her flatmate. And her flatmate was watching this program called Getting Filthy Rich. And it was insane, this program. Honestly, it was basically like watching porn. Like the whole show was just about these like OnlyFans women pretty much who make a killing off OnlyFans, like seriously crazy money. We're talking millions a year. And the things that they're doing are just absolutely crazy. Like there was this one guy who had been paying this woman over £100,000 a year, and he downgraded like where he lived. So now he was living in like a one-bed flat, whereas before he was living in a much bigger place and all of this stuff. And it was just to like fund this addiction, right? But on the TV show, they weren't really talking about addiction. I don't think they mentioned the word addiction once. It's like they're just ignoring the actual elephant in the room. It's like they're all talking about these different reasons why these guys are paying so much money to these women. But it's like, let's take a step back. Who in their right
Yeah.
mind would pay over 100 grand to be degraded on a camera? Like, it is addiction. Like, we've got to face this
Full
reality.
on.
It's absolutely mental.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You
it
know,
doesn't
I
seem.
I
Yeah.
use Facebook as my social media, and I don't even use that much because in the past I talked about it before. I've used it for about my volleyball connections, and I'm not playing anymore. But I also use it currently for my stand-up paddleboard connections. But I've gone to search for people on Facebook, and you don't get anything like that. It's like you get a list of names that you're searching on and then possibilities of their page or whatever their Facebook profile, but none of I don't know if there is no sexual content on Facebook of like that's the difference between Facebook and Instagram. I know they say, oh, Facebook's for old people. Okay, whatever. Yeah, sure. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's certainly on, so maybe it's my algorithms as well, but it certainly seems much more wholesome. And I mean
Yeah.
Instagram seems like, I said it to you before, it's send your young boy to a whorehouse. Here you go, have fun with that.
Mm.
I mean that
Well,
sounds
yeah.
extreme, but it's really not that far off.
What I found with Facebook is they actually have a bit on there where you can watch like reels, like short video content,
Oh
and
yeah.
you can click into those. And then what I found is I was clicking into a few of those like quite a long time ago now. I can't remember when. And then eventually that started to show me sexual content on there. But then that was
Yeah.
linking me off to Instagram because it's all connected,
Okay.
Facebook and Instagram. So it's
Yeah.
like Facebook was
Yeah.
showing this sexual content in the form of videos that would link me over to Instagram. So that's how they do it on there. And then,
Yeah, it does.
yeah,
It does know you. Yeah, because I've clicked on the reels a couple times, and like Eddie Vedder, listen to little Pearl Jam clips, and just it gets me with like old music stuff, the grunge and whatever, and then it seems to keep coming up. Then I'll see all kinds of Eddie Vedder like over and over, and
mm,
so it does know you. So, but I don't really click on the reels that much because I have a longer attention span than that. So,
yeah. It's quite
yeah,
interesting though how algorithms and addiction sort of go hand in hand a little bit, in
yeah,
terms of obviously it's your choice what you wish to watch, and you always have that choice. No one can take that away from you. But the thing is, if you're choosing to go on these social media sites and you're scrolling on them and you're looking at sexual content, it's like you're both reprogramming your mind to look for this sexual content, and then you're reprogramming the algorithm as well. And then they're
yeah,
like tying together. So you've got this
yeah.
rewiring both of the algorithm and your own brain. And
Yeah.
then it's like, what do you do at that point? Do you continue to use social media or do you choose to abstain during the withdrawal process? What would be your recommendation at that point, Mary?
My recommendation at that point, and before I would say, oh yeah, use it in a reasonable way, but I'm kind of the mindset now is like we should all get the hell off of social media. It's like it's so destructive. on so many levels. And even, not just the young people, but I see like old folks sitting in the lobby of the art center, scrolling on the social media. And it's like so much, taken away from, personal interaction with people. And as far as like, the pornography and stuff and people like forming real relationships, I mean, my God, it's just like so not real that any kind of real relationship is going to seem so foreign when you're used to virtual, connection.
Mm.
I think it's really harming our society on a really, really deep level. So, but of
Yeah.
course, people are going to be like, don't take away my social media.
Mm.
It's like, well, no, we can't take away your social media. There's way too many people profiting from it. You want to feed into that, go ahead. But, it's just a really big, dark, deep black hole, in my opinion. So,
Yeah, yeah. I think the other
yeah,
thing with it in general is it kind of commodifies people. And I mean, there's a lot of
yeah,
objectification as well. But like, give an example of this is I've got a friend who was talking about her friends, and she was on about how this girl that she's friends with is always like moving from type to type in terms of her preferences for like guys, like who she dates and stuff. And there just seem to be like all these different boxes and like different kinds of people. So you got like these gym guys and all these different labels and identities and all these sort of things. And I feel like that really sort of lends itself to Instagram and how all of that works as well, with all the
yeah,
hashtags and all of these different communities. And it's just like people have almost forgotten that people are just people at the end of the day. Like we all have hearts, we all have brains. Like we're pretty similar when you get down to things. But I
yeah,
feel like social media puts people in all these different boxes, and I'm just like, let's just stop doing that. You know, if you connect with someone and you're on a date, go out with them, continue dating them. You don't have to like label them as like this gym bro or whatever, and then be like, oh, I never date gym bros anymore because that's not my type. All this dumb shit and dating apps as well. Like honestly. I'm so against like dating apps. I'm so against social media nowadays. I think working with you for over a year has transformed my mindset to a point now where I see things so differently on how society is kind of working, and I
yeah.
would much rather just have a bit of a simple life really and just sort of read books and work with our clients and do the podcasts and see my friends, family and girlfriend and so on really because the
Yeah.
world's just going insane out there to be honest. I
Yeah,
don't
I know. I know, and it can shield yourself from it by staying off of the social media, and that being a choice to have a richer existence, to not participate in that.
Mm,
Yeah, but the thing is there's less and less people out in the world that are willing to engage on an actual real level that's not virtual, and the other thing too is like people on social media, the way they communicate in a way they would probably never do to somebody's face. You know what I
mm,
mean? It's like it's just mutating people's communication too.
yeah.
It's destructive, yeah. And we got, they say now that there's that generation. I don't know if it's your generation or I think it's a little older, like maybe my son's generation. He's going to be 33 next month. The anxious generation or whatever. And I think a lot of that is due to growing up on social media and on screens, they
Mm.
just their attention spans have just been wired in a fucked up way, so no wonder they feel anxious. It's like trying to go out and relate to people in the real world when
Yeah.
you're so used to just doing it on a screen,
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear that. Yeah. And I think for me personally, I'd probably like to get out there and spend even more time with people, like off the
Same.
screen, even more. You know, I was saying how the other week when I was in Portugal, I just met and spoke to like random people quite a bit to be straight. And here in England, you know, I spend quite a bit of time on my laptop, but I'm actually spending less and less time on it nowadays, which is nice. And getting out and, you know, last night just at a party, it's like 15 people there, it's quite fun. But yeah, I've never really been someone who isolates themselves as much, but I do think in general, connection is something where you have to be proactive and sort of go create it yourself. You know, like I set up a book club about what, 16 months ago or whatever. And that's pretty cool. You know, we have like probably 7 or 8 people come most months and we just sit and talk about a book that we've read and we have a little WhatsApp group and that's nice. So sometimes it's about creating the community yourself rather than thinking, oh, everyone's on social media nowadays. Like there's no hope for me going and finding someone in real life or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
have constraints in your life and set up an environment that you want for your life. You know, what I mean
Yeah.
is if you're saying, okay, I don't want to go on Instagram anymore, but I want to date, because like there's a lot of people who do want to date and they actually use social media to like connect and date and DMs and social proof or all this bullshit.
Yeah.
But it's like if you want to date, go and find a different way of dating if you don't want to be on Instagram. You know, like set your constraints and then go find an alternative. So like go in a coffee shop and talk to someone, set up a community group or join some other clubs or groups in your local area. Do whatever you want. I know I feel like I'm kind of just giving advice and most people already know this shit or like they're way beyond it or maybe they've already got a girlfriend or whatever, but it's more the principles behind this which I think are important because it's really about steering away from helplessness and embracing empowerment and your own choices and making your life how you want to make your life rather than believing you have to be part of this messed up society that other people are kind of stuck in.
Interesting. I was on a call with one of our clients last night who's early in the process, and he said, well, how am I gonna fill all this time, all this time that I spend, on pornography and these addictions, and is very isolated in that, and I talked to him, he hasn't done phase 3 yet, so he hasn't gotten to possibility versus limitation. But, the thing is to base, what you don't know what the possibility is to base it on, or to base your actions on not knowing, because you know that how much you're suffering to be isolated and stuck in these addictions and in this pornography. And I said, would you when you get to the other side, then you'll be able to develop whatever that possibility is, and you can be surprised by it too, like, oh,
Mm.
this is what it feels like to not be controlled by these addictive desires all the time. And then the doors open up, and like you say, then you can create um, a reality of your life that's beyond compulsion, right?
Yeah.
And then find people out in the world that want to do that as well,
Mm.
because obviously, I mean, doing this work, we see there's nobody that's like, oh, I just love being in this compulsive, head all the time and being controlled by my addictions, and how am I going to change the way I feel next and all this, nobody's happy with that, but
Mm.
when they're stuck in it, it's like they try to justify it, but once you can get free of it, then a lot of doors can open, to other possibilities of creating real connection versus virtual connection,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
it's not built that way. We're not built to be only connecting virtually. That's just not the way humans are built, So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, hopefully this year I get out to Portland sometime. We'll
I
set
know. I was
some
just going to say
fires and
that. I
yeah,
was going to say the exact same thing. I can't wait for you to come out here,
for
Come in
sure.
the spring. It's really beautiful. Come in
Yeah.
May when my wisteria is blooming.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Can do a podcast, but I think we'll probably be out in nature like all day, right? Because it sounds pretty
We can do a
beautiful out there.
podcast in the garden too. Yeah. Yeah, we
Yeah,
can do all kinds of stuff. So, yeah.
that'd be fun. Did I ever tell you about the last time I did a podcast in the garden?
No.
So yeah, like back in 2020, I had a different podcast talking about football and data and stuff, and I had like a podcast where I do it every single day. So I honestly did it for over 400 consecutive days. But one of those days, it got pretty late. It was like 11:45 or so at night, and I'd been out with some friends and we were sat in the garden having a few beers. And I remembered at that point, oh damn, like, I've not done my podcast, and I really wanted to keep my like podcast streak. I had such a
Yeah.
streak mentality about like everything, both like no fat, but then also this
Yeah.
podcast I was doing, right? So I'm like, oh, Nathan, he's like one of my best mates. I was like, oh, can you jump on a podcast? And we had a fire going as well. I remember just like jumping on my phone, like voice memo. I think I just recorded it on there or something, and then uploaded it like straight to Spotify or whatever it was to get the podcast out there. But we were both just like pretty drunk. It was late in the evening. We just did it on my phone. had a good
Yeah.
laugh, and that was pretty fun. But yeah, just when you said doing a podcast in the garden, that story always comes to
Yeah.
mind. But the funny
Yeah.
thing is, we listened back to that podcast a year later, and we were just like, "Oh my God, we were so drunk! Like this is the worst thing ever. It was the worst podcast." But yeah,
Drunk podcasting. It's
streak
hilarious.
mentality, eh? It's not good.
Yeah.
Lead people to
Yeah.
some bad places. But yeah, anyway, we'll probably wrap it up there for today's episode. Hopefully, this has been useful. Hopefully, you can maybe consider whether you want to stay on Instagram if you are on Instagram at the
Yeah.
moment, or
Just
whether it's going to
at least
be.
think about it
Yeah.
in a different way, you know?
Yeah, we're definitely not saying, oh, you need to delete Instagram to overcome porn. Like, there's some people as well. I have had a few chats actually with clients who are okay in terms of Instagram and porn. Like, they've just not found it addictive at all. So, like, there will be people out there who have a different relationship with Instagram. But I think knowing the risks and what Mary's just said there about the explore page really reveals how insidious that platform can be. And so, yeah, it's up to you what you want to do with it. But yeah, thanks for watching or listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.
Yeah.